What if I told you that behind every confident smile, every flirtatious glance, and every social post, there are hidden truths, things women won't say out loud? Not because they're manipulative, but because they're wired differently. In this video, we're diving deep into the 9 hidden female weaknesses every man should understand, especially if you want to lead with strength, stoicism, and self-respect. Let's begin. 1. Emotional validation dependency. What women won't tell you. There's something women will rarely admit, not because they're hiding it, but because it's often invisible even to them. It shapes their reactions, their moods, their relationships. And yet, most men overlook it completely. It's not about appearance. It's not about status. It's not even about love in the traditional sense. It's about emotional validation. The subtle, constant need to feel seen, felt, and understood. And the way this plays out can make or break your dynamic with a woman. At first, it might look like a simple compliment, a little reassurance, a soft word to make her feel good. But over time, what starts as something harmless can evolve into something more intense, a kind of dependency, a hunger for emotional feedback that never really ends. When you don't understand this, you either feed into it endlessly, or you shut it down completely. Both paths lead to problems. One leads to you becoming weak. The other leads to emotional disconnection. So let's talk about it. Emotional validation is the act of affirming someone's emotional experience. When someone says they feel sad, and you respond with, "That makes sense, I'd feel the same," that's validation. Simple, human, necessary. The truth is, we all need it to some degree. But women, in particular, are often conditioned from a young age to place a high value on how others perceive their emotions. Social media, relationships, and even cultural expectations reinforce this. Be open. Be expressive. Be vulnerable. But also, don't be too emotional. Don't be crazy. Don't overreact. This mixed messaging creates an emotional imbalance. On one hand, she's encouraged to feel deeply. On the other, she's punished for it. So what happens? She starts seeking emotional safety in the people around her, especially in the men she dates. This is where emotional validation becomes a core need. But when it's not self-regulated, it becomes dependency. You'll see it in the little things. She sends you a photo and waits for your reaction. She tells you about her stressful day and watches how engaged you are. She might bring up insecurities. Do you still find me attractive? Not because she doubts you, but because she needs to hear it again, and again, and again. If you don't respond fast enough, if you're neutral instead of warm, she may pull away or overreact. Because now, your emotional response, or lack of it, becomes a measure of her self-worth. But this is where most men make a crucial mistake. They start over-validating. They fall into this unconscious pattern of constantly reassuring her, constantly boosting her confidence, constantly trying to fix her bad moods with attention. In doing so, they give up their emotional leadership. They move from being the grounded man she was drawn to, into the role of emotional caretaker. And once you step into that role, the dynamic changes. You're no longer attractive, you're just available. Just responsive. Just soft. Now here's the paradox. The more you try to validate her every emotion, the more she questions your strength. It's counterintuitive, but real. She wants to feel supported, yes, but not at the cost of your edge. She doesn't want a man who breaks every time she bends. She wants a man who can hold his own center, even when she's in emotional chaos. This doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. That's another trap. Some men go the opposite way. They shut down, they ignore her emotions, they stop engaging. This leads to resentment and distance. She feels like she's alone in the relationship. So what's the balance? The key is emotional awareness without emotional reactivity. You hear her, but you don't chase her mood. You recognize her feelings, but you don't revolve around them. You don't dismiss her. You don't explain yourself 100 times. You stand firm, calm, grounded. That's stoicism in relationships, not emotionless, but unshakable. She says, "I don't feel like you care." Most men panic. They over-explain, over-apologize. But a man who understands this simply replies, "I care more than you know, but I'm not going to prove it with performance. Let's talk." In that moment, she either rises to meet you, or she doesn't. But you didn't collapse to meet her where she's low. That's strength. That's leadership. And it's rare. Most men chase emotional peace. They want harmony so badly, they'll sacrifice their own frame for it. But emotional leadership isn't about keeping things calm. It's about staying calm when things get loud. You also need to know that a woman will sometimes test you emotionally, not maliciously, but instinctively. She wants to know if your calm is real, or just an act. She'll say something triggering. She'll create a little chaos. And how you respond tells her everything. If you collapse, argue, over-explain, or get defensive, she knows your strength was temporary. But if you remain calm, even amused, she relaxes. She knows you're solid. She knows she can trust you, because you can handle her storm. This is where emotional validation is most powerful, when it's earned, not handed out freely. When you validate her in moments that matter, not every 5 minutes, but at the right time, it hits deeper. Because now, it's rare. It's real. And it's coming from a place of presence, not performance. Eventually, a woman who is with a grounded man begins to self-regulate. She doesn't need to ask if she looks good, she knows. She doesn't need to test your loyalty, she trusts your consistency. And you're not constantly trying to manage her emotional world, because you've shown her how to manage her own. That's the gift of masculine energy. Not to fix her feelings. Not to mirror her emotions. But to create space where she can feel what she needs to feel, without drowning both of you in it. When you become the calm in her storm, she stops creating storms just to find calm. So the next time you're in a moment where she's seeking emotional validation, pause. Don't ignore it. But don't instantly react either. Listen. Breathe. Respond with presence, not performance. She'll feel it. And over time, she'll trust it. Not because you said all the right things, but because you stayed solid when it mattered most. That's the difference between a man who seeks approval and a man who leads. That's the difference between being consumed by emotion and being trusted with it. And that's what separates the ordinary from the stoic. 2. The need to feel chosen, even after she's already chosen you. There's something else women rarely admit out loud. Even after they've entered a committed relationship, even after they say yes to you, even after the texts, the time, the loyalty, they still carry a subtle, silent craving deep within them, the need to feel chosen. Not just once. Not just at the beginning. But over and over again. This doesn't mean she's insecure. It doesn't mean she's shallow. It means she needs reminders of her place in your world, not through constant words, but through energy, attention, presence, polarity. Over time, that attention becomes addictive. Not because she's arrogant, but because it provides constant feedback. It becomes her mirror. And without it, she feels unseen, like her value is slipping. So what does she do? She seeks more. You'll notice it in little ways. The Instagram thirst traps. The passive "I'm bored" texts. The subtle compliments fishing. The dramatic stories told just to stir a reaction. These aren't always manipulative. Often, they're unconscious habits, learned behaviors from a world that taught her, your worth depends on how many people are watching you. And here's where it gets dangerous for the average man. Most guys are so desperate to get a woman's attention that they don't realize she's also trying to keep his. But instead of guarding their attention like gold, they give it away like loose change. They reply instantly. They compliment endlessly. They double text, overreact, and validate everything she says. And in doing so, they devalue themselves. Because the more available your attention is, the less it's worth. This doesn't mean you become cold or unresponsive. That's not stoic, that's insecure. It means you become selective, intentional, grounded. You stop giving attention out of need and start giving it out of choice. Let's say she posts a revealing photo on social media. You're tempted to comment. You're tempted to like. But ask yourself, what message am I sending? When you reward low-effort behavior with high-value attention, you become part of the validation machine. You're not leading, you're reacting. You're not exclusive, you're common. But when you pause, when you observe, when you don't rush to respond, she feels something she rarely feels: uncertainty. And that, for a woman used to attention, is powerful. It makes her reflect, adjust, recalibrate. Suddenly, your attention has weight. And when you finally give it, it means something. Women instinctively know the difference between a man who gives attention to get something and a man who gives attention because he's already full. The first is needy. The second is sovereign. And sovereignty is attractive. Now, let's go deeper. In relationships, attention becomes a power play. A woman may pull away just to see if you chase. She might withhold affection to test your reaction. Or she might flood you with attention only to withdraw it and see how you respond. These aren't always games. Sometimes, they're instinctual tests of your frame. The weak man panics. He chases. He overcompensates. He begs for the attention back. But the grounded man observes. He stays calm. He doesn't punish her, but he also doesn't chase. He lets his attention become a mirror. She sees herself in it and decides who she wants to be. That's emotional leadership. Now, what about when you're already in a long-term relationship? Here's where most men go wrong. They stop being intentional with their attention. They either smother her giving non-stop praise and validation, or they withdraw completely, making her feel unseen. Both extremes fail. The key is strategic presence. Be fully engaged when it matters, when she's being vulnerable, when she's doing something courageous, when she's genuinely connecting. But don't give constant attention just to keep the peace. Let her earn your focus the same way you earn hers, with depth, with effort, with energy. And remember, attention doesn't always mean compliments or texts. Sometimes it means listening. Sometimes it means noticing a detail she didn't think you'd catch. Sometimes it means holding space, not filling it. The more grounded you are in your presence, the more powerful your attention becomes. It goes from a reaction to a reward. And that's the ultimate shift, when your attention becomes a gift, not a currency you trade for approval. So, how do you apply this in your life? First, stop giving your attention to anything or anyone that doesn't respect it. That includes endless scrolling, pointless texting, or women who only respond when you chase. Second, raise the standards for what earns your focus. Not in an arrogant way, but in a respectful, self-owned way. You're a man with purpose, with direction. Your attention is sacred. Third, recognize when your attention is being used as fuel. If a woman is constantly pushing emotional buttons just to get a reaction, pause. Don't reward chaos. Respond with calm, or not at all. Because your silence, your stillness, is sometimes more powerful than any words. And finally, give your attention when it matters most. Not because she demands it, but because you chose it. Let it be rare. Let it be real. Let it come from strength, not need. When you master this, you stop being another follower in her orbit and you become the center of your own. A man who isn't moved by everything becomes the man who moves others. The Stoic edge. And that's the power of attention, not when you give it away, but when you control it. 3. The approval trap. Why her standards keep changing. Most men live their lives trying to please women without ever realizing the rules keep changing. You show up. You're kind. You say the right things. You think, if I just keep doing everything she likes, she'll stay. But she doesn't. One day she's warm, the next she's distant. One day she praises you, the next she criticizes you. You try harder. You adjust. You chase. And somehow, it's never quite enough. That's because you've fallen into the approval trap, a silent cycle where your value depends on her mood. You're no longer living by your own standard. You're living by hers. And the deeper you fall, the more invisible you become. Let's unpack this. At the beginning of a relationship, everything is exciting. You both show your best. She's sweet, interested, flirty. You feel seen, wanted. She laughs at your jokes, texts you back fast, gives you compliments. Naturally, your brain associates her approval with your masculine success. But here's the truth no one tells you. In most cases, her early approval is based on your potential, not your personality. Not yet. She feels your energy, your mystery, your confidence. She sees possibility. But as soon as you start altering yourself to meet her every need, she starts testing that potential. And that's where the standards begin to shift. She says she likes emotional men, so you open up more. Then she says you're too sensitive. She says she wants you to chase her, so you do. Then she says you're too available. She says she wants honesty, so you speak your truth. Now you're too harsh. You're confused. You think, what happened? I'm doing everything she said she wanted. But the reality is, women don't want a man who bends. They want a man who listens but leads, responds but doesn't beg, cares but won't sacrifice himself just to be liked. That's what the approval trap steals from you. Your edge, your mystery, your backbone. Because once you start performing for approval, you stop being yourself. And once that happens, she doesn't even know who she's with anymore. Now here's the twist. She'll never tell you she's testing you, but she is. Not out of cruelty, but instinct. She wants to feel your boundaries. She wants to know you're solid, not just sweet. That your confidence isn't borrowed from her praise, but rooted in your mission. When she senses that your emotional state depends on hers, she loses attraction. When she realizes she can pull you off your path with a single cold glance or passive-aggressive comment, she stops trusting your strength. Because now you're not leading, you're orbiting her. And here's what most men do when this happens: they double down on the approval seeking. More compliments, more gifts, more reassurance. They ask questions like, are we okay? Did I do something wrong? What can I do better? These questions sound caring, but to her, they feel like pressure. Emotional weight. A demand for reassurance she doesn't want to give. Because she's not looking for you to fix the vibe, she's watching to see if you stay grounded when it's off. That's what a Stoic man does. He doesn't chase mood swings. He doesn't fix every silence. He doesn't ask, what's wrong? 15 times. He notices. He holds space. And if something is off, he calls it once, directly, and lets her come to him when she's ready. That calmness, that refusal to over-explain, that strength. And strength is the only language true feminine energy respects long-term. Now here's where it gets real. The more you seek approval, the less she respects you. And the less she respects you, the more she tests you. She may not even realize she's doing it. But unconsciously, she's seeing how much of yourself you'll give up to keep her. And if the answer is everything, she pulls back. Because now, you're no longer a man. You're a mirror. You reflect what she wants, but you don't challenge her. You don't inspire her. You don't lead her. And deep down, she craves that leadership. Not control. Not domination. Just direction. Confidence. Certainty. So what's the way out of the approval trap? You stop living for her, yes. You stop chasing her moods. You start asking yourself, do I approve of how I'm showing up as a man? You set your own emotional tone. You lead with values, not vibes. You become a man with a code, and you follow it even when it costs you her attention. You praise her when she deserves it, not when you're scared to lose her. You compliment from abundance, not fear. You apologize when you've actually done wrong, not just to restore peace. And the moment she realizes your emotional state isn't tied to hers, that her coldness doesn't shatter you, and her warmth doesn't buy you, she stops playing games. She steps into your frame. Because now she trusts you. Not because you gave her everything she asked for, but because you gave her something rare. A man who cannot be shaken by her storm. And in today's world, that's a rare thing. 4. Her emotional memory. She remembers what you forgot. There's something that separates women from men in relationships, not just emotionally, but neurologically. Women don't just feel things, they store them. Moments, words, energy, emotional tone. She remembers things you've long forgotten. Not always logically, but viscerally. You might forget a conversation. She remembers how it made her feel. This is her emotional memory, and if you don't understand it, you'll keep repeating patterns that destroy trust without realizing it. Let me explain. When something upsets you as a man, you either confront it or bury it. You move on. You compartmentalize. You forget. But women, on the other hand, absorb emotional experiences. They don't always bring it up immediately, but they feel it. It gets stored. Not in a folder labeled evidence, but in a deeper place. It's not about logic. It's about how safe she felt with you in that moment. Or didn't. And here's where most men get it wrong. They think, that was weeks ago, why is she still bringing it up? Or, I already apologized, why is it still an issue? Or worse, it wasn't even that serious. But here's the truth. Women remember emotional patterns, not isolated events. If she felt dismissed, judged, or abandoned repeatedly, even subtly, she forms an emotional imprint. And now, every time you do something similar, it stacks on top of that memory. It reinforces a pattern. And when she finally reacts, you see the explosion, not the build-up. This is why she brings up the past. Not to punish you. Not because she's stuck. But because to her, it never really ended. Now, this doesn't mean she's always right. It doesn't mean you walk on eggshells. But it means you have to understand something most men never grasp. To a woman, emotional consistency equals safety. If your words and actions match, she relaxes. If your tone and behavior stay grounded, she trusts. If you break her trust and pretend it didn't happen, she stores that fracture. So what's the solution? You stop invalidating what she remembers. You stop minimizing her emotional data just because it doesn't match your mental timeline. You start recognizing how your presence or lack of it shaped her memory. Because even if the details fade, the emotional tone stays. She may not recall what exactly you said 2 months ago, but she remembers feeling unsupported. She may not remember the exact argument, but she remembers you shutting down and walking away. She may not remember the event, but she remembers crying alone while you played it cool. That's emotional memory. And once it builds up, it becomes resentment. Quiet at first, then loud. Eventually, it shows up in distance, mood swings, cold affection, or passive tests of your loyalty. The worst part? Most men don't connect the dots. They think she's acting different. She thinks he never really got it. This is how relationships break without anyone cheating, yelling, or leaving. They break in silence, in dismissals, in forgetfulness. Now let's flip the script. You want to be a stoic man? A grounded man? Then don't just remember her birthday or anniversary. Remember how she felt when life hit her hard. Remember how she looked when she was quiet but needed you. Remember what made her withdraw even when she said she was fine. This doesn't mean you become a people pleaser. This means you become emotionally present. A woman respects a man who doesn't just hear her words, but feels her shifts. Who notices patterns? Who shows growth? Who doesn't need to be told the same thing 10 times? And here's the key, the deeper secret. When a woman feels like you've learned her emotional language, when she sees you remembering not just facts, but feelings, her guard drops, her tests stop, her loyalty deepens. Because now, you're not just physically present, you're emotionally dependable. That doesn't mean perfection. It means effort, awareness, maturity. So how do you develop this? You start by noticing emotional tone, not just content. She says I'm fine, but her tone is cold. That's data. She says it's not a big deal, but she's withdrawn. That's memory in the making. Don't push. Don't force. Just acknowledge. Give space. Lead with calm. And when she does bring up the past, don't rush to defend yourself. Don't say that was months ago. Say, I see why that stuck with you. I didn't handle that well. Let's talk. It's not about agreeing with every emotion. It's about respecting the fact that she stores them. Because the woman who brings up old wounds isn't trying to control you. She's asking, "Can I trust you with what I carry?" When you answer that with presence instead of pride, you become the kind of man she doesn't forget for all the right reasons. Because while she'll always remember how you made her feel, you get to decide if that feeling is fear or safety. 5. The power of silent tests, when she pulls away just to see if you'll chase. One of the most misunderstood dynamics between men and women is the silent test. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't warn you. But you feel it suddenly. She pulls away. She's colder, slower to reply, less affectionate, and you start to panic. You ask yourself, did I do something wrong? Is she losing interest? Is she testing me? The answer is yes, but not in the way you think. This isn't a test you study for. It's not about logic. It's not even about you doing something wrong. This is about emotional positioning. She's pulling back to see if you'll chase, to see if you'll break your frame, to see if your confidence was real or only alive when she gave you comfort. This is how many women unconsciously measure your strength. Can I influence his emotional state without saying a word? If the answer is yes, she loses respect. If the answer is no, she leans in. Let's go deeper. Most men believe women want words, but the truth is, women are reading your energy. She watches how you respond when she's unpredictable. She watches how you handle emotional friction. And she watches how quickly you abandon your power the moment you feel her pull away. This is where weak men fail. The moment she gets quiet, they get louder. The moment she slows down communication, they over-communicate. The moment she gets distant, they text paragraphs, send gifts, ask questions, beg for clarity. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you chase, the more she retreats. Why? Because now she knows she can move you. And a woman doesn't want a man she can move. She wants a man who anchors her. She wants to feel your presence when she's uncertain, not your panic. The silent test isn't about cruelty. It's about certainty. A feminine woman wants to feel your confidence in motion. She wants to know that when she pulls away, you won't emotionally unravel. That you won't trade your dignity for closeness. This doesn't mean you ignore her. It means you don't abandon your center just to make her feel secure. You give her space. You match her energy. You hold the line with calm and warmth, not anxiety. Let me give you an example. She suddenly stops texting you first. The weak man texts 3 times in a row. The grounded man doesn't. He notices, reflects, waits, responds when needed, not before. She starts giving one-word replies. The insecure man over-explains himself, asks if something's wrong. The stoic man mirrors her energy with peace, not pettiness. This isn't about playing games. This is about emotional discipline. Because here's the paradox. The more you chase her, the less she values you. The more you center yourself, the more she returns on her own. Why? Because feminine energy is naturally drawn to emotional leadership. And emotional leadership isn't loud. It's not reactive. It's still, calm, grounded. And grounding energy does not chase chaos. Now let's talk about what happens after the test. If you hold the line, she softens. She returns more open, more curious. And here's the mistake most men make. They either punish her for testing them, or reward her with instant access. Both approaches fail. Instead, meet her return with relaxed confidence. Not cold, not clingy, just stable. Let her feel that nothing she did shook your foundation. That's the moment she realizes, this man can handle me. I feel safe here. And safety is what allows the feminine to fully express. But here's what you have to accept. If she pulls away and never comes back, that was never your woman to begin with. Because true feminine energy returns to strong masculine presence. If it doesn't, then it was performance. And performance doesn't deserve your pursuit. So what's the lesson? Stop chasing silence. Stop fixing energy that isn't yours to fix. Start mastering your response when she pulls away. Because how you handle her distance is the ultimate mirror of how you handle your own insecurity. When you learn to sit in uncertainty without needing control, you win the test. Not because you passed her standards, but because you stood firm in your own. That's Stoic strength. That's masculine leadership. That's the man she remembers when every other guy begged for closeness she didn't want to give. 6. The control illusion. Why she resents the man who gives her everything. At some point in every man's life, he meets a woman he wants to impress. Maybe even keep. So what does he do? He gives her everything. Time, attention, compliments. He says yes more than no. He cancels plans. He adjusts his schedule. He learns what she likes and builds himself around it. And for a while, it works. She's responsive, affectionate. She even says things like, "You're different." But then, slowly, things change. Her energy fades. Her tone dulls. Her texts are short. The attention you gave her becomes expectation and your effort starts feeling invisible. You think, why is she pulling back? I've been nothing but good to her. And that's the problem. You fell into what I call the control illusion, a mindset where you believe that if you just give a woman enough, she'll stay. Love you. Respect you. But she won't. Not like that. Because a woman doesn't want everything. She wants something real to follow. A man with direction. Standards. Edges. Boundaries. Not a man who exists to please her, but a man who challenges her to rise. You might think your generosity is leadership. It's not. If it's rooted in fear, it's weakness dressed as kindness. Let me explain something few men understand. The man who gives her everything without limits creates a burden, not a blessing. Why? Because now she's in charge. She leads the rhythm. She decides the tone. She controls the structure. And the feminine, at its core, doesn't want to lead. It wants to surrender to a man it trusts. But it can't surrender to someone it doesn't respect. And you can't respect a man who breaks his own frame just to make you happy. So when you say yes to every plan, when you skip the gym because she called, when you silence your truth to avoid tension, she might thank you in the moment, but deep down, something shifts. Because now she realizes you'll betray yourself to keep her. That's not love. That's desperation. And desperation kills desire. You want to be respected, desired, craved? Don't give her everything. Give her structure. Give her consistency. Give her presence, not performance. Say no when something violates your values. Lead, even when she resists. Hold your center when she gets emotional, don't fold into hers. That's what makes a man irreplaceable. Not his flexibility. Not his generosity. But his unshakable identity. Now let's be clear, this doesn't mean you become controlling. It means you control yourself. Because the masculine isn't meant to orbit the feminine. It's meant to guide it. And when a woman feels like she's guiding the relationship, managing your emotions, dictating every decision, controlling your direction, she starts to resent the very comfort she once praised. That's the paradox of the feminine. It desires freedom but respects containment. It resists control but craves structure. So when you give her everything she wants, without a backbone, without boundaries, you actually give her nothing to respond to. She's not angry that you care. She's frustrated that you folded. You let her lead and she didn't want to. You let her set the emotional tone and it exhausted her. You let her test you and you failed by trying to stop the test instead of passing it. Here's the truth. She doesn't want full control. She wants to relax into your leadership, to feel your strength, to soften in your presence, to trust that when she loses her emotional balance you won't. But when you make her your everything, you lose your edge, your power, your masculine core. She wants a man who has a mission, a purpose, a backbone, one who gives from overflow, not insecurity, one who listens but doesn't break, one who loves her but loves his code even more. So next time you feel the urge to fix things, to give more, to bend in hopes of earning her affection, ask yourself, Am I giving from my masculine strength or out of fear of losing her? Because if it's fear, you've already lost. Not her, but yourself. And no woman, no matter how beautiful, no matter how magnetic, is worth the cost of your masculinity. Remember this. The man who gives her everything often ends up with nothing. The man who gives her structure, presence, and a clear identity keeps her feminine and loyal. 7. Validation resistance. Why she's drawn to men who don't need her praise. There's a reason some men leave a lasting impression on women even after short encounters. It's not because of their looks, or status, or charm. It's because they don't need her validation. They want her. Sure, they enjoy her energy, but they don't seek her approval to feel complete. And this is rare, because most men, whether they realize it or not, are validation-seeking machines. Every compliment, every text reply, every smile from her, it becomes proof that they're worthy. They say things like, "I just want her to notice my effort. I hope she texts me back. I think I finally said the right thing." But that mindset, that need for response, is repellent. Because here's what most men don't understand. The moment you need a woman's praise is the moment she starts losing attraction. Because now, she holds power over your emotional state. And when you hand her that power, she no longer sees you as a man, she sees you as a boy looking for approval. And here's the truth. Masculinity doesn't seek validation. It generates confidence from within. That's what she's drawn to. That's what she tests for. And that's what separates grounded men from forgettable ones. Let's go deeper. When a man constantly needs her to reassure him, "Do you still like me? Am I doing okay? What do you think of me?" He places her in a parental role. She becomes the emotional leader, the validator, the one keeping his identity afloat. And that dynamic kills polarity fast. Because the feminine wants to relax into a man's confidence, not build it for him. This is where the concept of validation resistance comes in. What is it? It's the ability to remain calm, grounded, and in control of your emotional frame regardless of how much attention, affection, or praise she gives you. It's not about arrogance. It's about emotional independence. You don't need her to praise you because you already respect yourself. You don't need her to respond right away because your mission comes first. You don't need her to tell you that you're doing well because your inner compass already knows. And that kind of man is magnetic, not because he plays games, but because he's not playing at all. He's just being. Unmoved, unbothered, unchasing. Now, here's where most men fall off. They confuse confidence with coldness. They think, if I ignore her, I'll be high value. Wrong. Indifference isn't masculinity. Centeredness is. That means you can give compliments without expecting one back. You can show love without needing reassurance in return. You can engage but you never chase. You're not afraid to lose her because you've already found yourself. That's the core of validation resistance. You don't resist her energy, you resist the urge to define yourself by her response to it. That's why women test men. Not to be cruel, not to manipulate, but to feel, can this man hold his center even when I pull back? If you pass that test, everything changes. She leans in. She respects your edge. She trusts your strength. Because now, you've shown her something rare. A man who cannot be moved by the wind of her moods. That's the kind of man she tells her friends about. That's the kind of man she dreams of at night. That's the kind of man who leaves a mark even if he never says a word. So here's what you do. The next time she gives you silence, stay still. The next time she withholds praise, don't chase it. The next time she tests you with a little emotional chaos, smile. Stay calm. Stay grounded. Because your power isn't in reacting. It's in remembering who you are without needing her to remind you. That's validation resistance. That's masculine self-respect. And that is irresistible. 8. The drama magnet. How she uses conflict to measure your control. Not because she likes chaos, but because she wants to feel you. And sometimes, the only way she knows how to do that is through conflict. She picks a fight. Over nothing. A tone. A look. A delayed reply. It doesn't make sense. But she pushes. Pokes. Escalates. And you think, why is she starting drama when everything was going so well? You're confused. You feel blindsided. And most men react the same way. They get defensive. Angry. Or they shut down completely. They take the bait. They play the game. And they lose. Every time. But here's what she's actually doing. She's checking your frame. She's not starting drama because she wants to destroy the relationship. She's doing it consciously or not because she wants to feel your emotional dominance. Not control. Not manipulation. Not ego. Control of yourself. She's asking, can this man stay grounded while I spin out? Can he hold the tension, or will he collapse under it? Because if you can't hold her chaos, she can't trust you with her softness. That's the paradox most men miss. The drama isn't about the issue, it's about the energy. She wants to feel your strength, your steadiness. She wants to see if you're emotionally solid or secretly fragile. Let me be clear, this doesn't justify bad behavior. You should never tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or abuse. But you also shouldn't fold at the first sign of emotional weather. A woman will test you emotionally because she wants to know, is this man safe to surrender to? And if you get rattled by her moods, if you yell, sulk, beg, or over-explain, you send one message. I am not safe to lead. I react. I chase comfort. And nothing kills her attraction faster than that. But if you remain calm, if you don't flinch, if you hold your tone and your ground not with aggression, but presence, that's when she feels it. I can trust this man. She may not even admit it. She may still storm off or throw jabs. But deep down, her feminine is watching and it's taking notes. Here's how you pass the test. Don't escalate. If she raises her voice, you lower yours. Don't try to fix her feelings. Just hear them. Hold the space. Stay calm. Don't apologize just to make her calm down. Only apologize if you truly believe you were wrong. And don't abandon your boundaries to make her like you again. That's not strength, that's weakness dressed as love. Remember, you're not there to control her, you're there to control yourself. That's masculine leadership. And when she feels it, even in conflict, she softens. Because now she knows. You're not just a man in good times. You're a man she can count on when emotions run high. That's rare. That's powerful. That's unforgettable. 9. The soft power. Why the feminine wants to be led, but will never say it out loud. There's a quiet truth most modern relationships never talk about. Women, even strong, independent ones, don't want to lead in love. They'll lead at work. They'll lead socially. They'll lead themselves when they have to. But when it comes to intimacy, romance, polarity, they want a man who knows how to lead the dance. And not just physically but emotionally, energetically, spiritually. They won't say this out loud. In fact, many women will deny it, at least consciously. But deep down, she wants a man who knows where he's going. Who isn't afraid to make decisions. Who guides with presence. Who doesn't wait to be told how to lead, he just does it. And when she feels that, she softens. She relaxes. She feels safe. And in that safety, her deepest feminine energy blooms. This is the essence of soft power, the kind of leadership that doesn't dominate, but invites surrender. The modern man has been told this is toxic. That leadership means control. That initiative is manipulation. That strength is aggression. But true masculine leadership has nothing to do with ego and everything to do with responsibility. It's saying, I've got this. I'll protect the structure, so you can express. I'll make the tough decisions, not because you can't, but because I want you to rest in your femininity. And here's what's wild. Most women don't even realize how much they crave this, until they experience it. And when they do, it's like a home they never knew they were missing. But you can't fake it. You can't act like a leader to get her to melt. She'll feel the performance instantly. You have to become the man who leads from depth, not from insecurity. Not to control her, but because that's who you are. So what does this look like in action? It means you make the plan. You don't ask, "What do you want to do tonight?" You offer direction. You stay emotionally steady when she's overwhelmed. You set boundaries early, not to punish, but to protect the connection. You communicate clearly. You say what you mean what you say, and you don't over-explain. You move with purpose, not hesitation. That's what creates the magnetic tension between masculine and feminine. That's what allows her to open, to feel safe, to surrender. Not because she's weak, but because you're strong. The feminine wants to flow, but water needs a riverbank. Without structure, she spills everywhere. And when there's no masculine frame, no grounded presence, she has no choice but to lead. And when she's forced to lead in love, she resents it. Not because she doesn't love you, but because she doesn't feel led. So what's the message? You don't become high value by chasing her. You don't become respected by giving her everything. You become unforgettable by embodying the kind of man she can follow without fear. That's the man who holds the room. That's the man who earns her trust. That's the man who stands out from the crowd of pleasers, chasers, and nice guys trying to get picked. Lead with calm. Lead with clarity. Lead without needing to be thanked. And she will follow, not because she has to, but because she wants to. Now that you've heard all 9 hidden weaknesses, let's make something clear. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about playing games. And it's definitely not about controlling women. It's about understanding reality and leading with grounded strength. Most men go their whole lives trying to please the feminine, while completely ignoring the one thing she actually craves. A man with presence. A man with purpose. A man who leads not with ego, but with clarity. You don't become that man by chasing. You don't become him by folding to pressure. You become him by building discipline, by mastering your emotions, and by refusing to shrink just to be liked. Because the truth is, you're not here to impress her. You're here to impress yourself. Once you become that kind of man, the kind who doesn't need her validation, doesn't fear her tests, and doesn't lose himself when love gets hard, she'll feel it, without you saying a word. That's the power of true masculinity. Silent, steady, unapologetic. So ask yourself, which man are you becoming? Because the world doesn't need more nice guys. It needs men of substance. And the women who matter? They're not looking for perfect. They are looking for real. Make sure you're that man. If this spoke to you, subscribe. And keep sharpening your edge. Because this is just the beginning.